I'm gonna win at any cost. So I don't believe in failure. Failure is not an option for me.
Welcome to the Zero to Profitable Franchise Podcast, the best place for you to come to figure out the right franchise to buy and how to get and stay profitable. My name is Tariq Johnson, and I've bought, grown, and sold multiple franchises and got myself free from corporate America, and now I'm on a mission to help you do that too. Here you'll find some of the most in-depth, profitable franchise secrets, tangible strategies, and specific mindsets to help you create your dream life through franchising. Well, welcome everyone. I have Burbino and Julie here. They are franchisees with Painting with a Twist. And a very interesting way that we met. Actually, you can see a little bit in the background that they're here in Orlando, which is where I live. And my wife and I were invited to a charity event that was at their location. We went, we had a great time. And I didn't realize that the location was a franchise. And when I did, I just thought, wow, I really got to talk to these guys and interview them and hear their story. And it's a very interesting one, especially with the specific location that they wind up owning. But welcome, guys, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So start out, tell me just a little bit about you guys and your backgrounds prior to being franchisees.
Yeah, so my name is Burbino Lehans. My background is more so of the administrator type. I went to Bethune-Cookman, now university, have a BS in business administration. I worked for the county for a number of years, as well as in the hospitality industry. Prior to, starting here with Painting with a Twist, I was the administrator for my church for 3 years, very big church. And, this was just one of those things that kind of was divine for us. I'll let my wife kind of tell a little bit about herself as well.
Hi, yes, I'm Julie. So initially I went to school to be an interior and fashion designer. So I did that for a little bit, did a lot of freelance design. And then I also have a nursing degree. So I've been a registered nurse with Orlando Health for a little over 13 years. So my background and my passion has always been, arts for the most part. And so together, having my husband's background in business and my passion for art, it just was a perfect combination.
Awesome. That does sound like a perfect combination and sounds a little bit similar to my wife and I, with her being an art dealer, though she's had a business for a long time. So you guys have a unique story about the specific location that you now own, and we'll talk a little bit more about kind of your journey, but tell us about the connection that you have to the location that you guys are now owners of. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I mean, really 7 years ago, my wife, surprised me for my birthday. And, she brought me to this actual location as a surprise, just to give everybody a little background. I'm not artsy at all.
One bit. One bit.
And, she surprised me. I use the word surprise because, the fact that, I'm not an artsy kind of guy. So I think she told me up front, hey, this is what I have planned for you. I probably would have been like, let's do something else, But she kind of planned out the day for me for my birthday, and actually came here. This was pretty much our introduction to Painting with a Twist. And so I came, had some drinks, had some good music, I think I had a better time than she did.
Keep pumping those drinks into you. Keep pumping those drinks in.
After a few drinks, I felt like I was Picasso or something,
You did.
But her artwork still turned out better than, we still have that same artwork from, our first time coming here. with, till this day. And so, fast forward, 3, 4 years ago, my wife, kind of just planted that seed of, hey, you ever thought about owning, one of these locations? And so, my immediate reaction was like, not really. And so
Yeah, my reaction was just give him some time.
You were scheming it out.
Yeah.
Just planting the seed.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, in due time, because for us too, for me, I'm a numbers guy, it has to make, financial sense. The opportunity. Of course, I love the concept. When you start thinking about concept wise and how everything would work and the numbers, with some hard work, we could make something special happen. And so, like you said, skill set, my skill set, my wife's skill set, I think, with the right, ingredients, you can cook something great. And so, yeah, that's kind of like how we got started as far as within the Penny with a Twist. So we started this conversation, I believe it was
2014. Actually, it was 2014. 2014
That's
is
when you started the conversation.
Actually, yeah. So looking back, it was in 2014 that I started to plant the seed. And then, marinated for a little bit and grew a little bit. And then we probably started really getting serious about it. Maybe 2015, 2016, we started just looking at locations, just, our thoughts, daydreaming, this would be a great location if we did it. But I think it really got serious like maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. And so what was because I think that there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that. I know that my wife and I's story on our first franchise that we opened was similar, where we were kind of looking, we kind of let it sit for a while. And then there were a couple of specific triggers that caused us to re-engage and get more serious. So when you fast forward from 2014 to 3 or 4 years later, once you started to seriously re-engage in the conversation, what was happening in your life that caused the conversation to get more serious?
Yeah, so I think one thing is we were in a different financial position. I think 3, 4 years ago, we sold our home. We moved in with our in-laws. We had zero debt, and so I was always focused on my career and my wife as well. But at a certain point, I think a lot of entrepreneurs and people who have that hunger, for better for themselves, you start thinking, wow, we've been working hard all these years and we're making other companies or other people great, by your efforts. Why not do it for yourself? Why not put that same, if you go hard for others, why not go hard for yourself? And I think that's kind of like where that mindset started to change a little bit.
Yeah. And I think not just that too, like my father, one of the reasons why we ended up, selling our home and, my father got ill and it became a challenge to go back and forth, taking care of him, taking care of the family. And then we had the young kids. And so when we actually sold and decided, let's move into our parents' home, help my dad out for a little bit. Then, you realize that what's really the essence, what's important is the blood, your bloodline, and it's kind of like, you know what? I don't know how many years my dad may have left. And then we're looking at our young kids, like we need to really start building and focusing really for our kids. So it doesn't matter how much time we put in. At that point, like Barbino said, we're debt free. We had absolutely, till this day, thank God, no debt. And so it's kind of like, let's do it. This is the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So at that time, your mindset was kind of starting to go, hey, we're getting kind of tired of just working for someone else and we're hard workers, and just the conversation of what if we What if we did something on our own?
Mhm.
And then the circumstances started to, I don't want to say align because that's the wrong word really, which is there was a challenge in your life, and but you were able to see the opportunity in that challenge. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so talk to us about your kids, right? Because you guys have two kids, right?
Yes.
Two
Yes.
kids. And so you made this decision. When did you guys officially purchase the location?
September 28th of last year.
September 28th of 2020.
2020.
Mhm.
So say it again.
During a pandemic.
During a pandemic, yeah. And we're going to unpack that because that's certainly very interesting. But your conversation started in 2014. It wasn't until 3 or 4 years later that you got serious about the conversation and then actually pulled the trigger and purchased the location in September 2020. What was that conversation like around your family life and having kids and making this transition to entrepreneurs with young kids? Because I think there are a lot of people that use young kids as an excuse to wait and not pull the trigger. What was that conversation like?
Yeah, I mean, the conversation is still ongoing. To be honest and to be very transparent, I think it is an ongoing conversation. But at the time, of course, you think about school, you think about while we're away, where's the support or if there's any support. So I think a lot of times, I think as parents, we're always thinking about first, people always say, hey, families first, or God first, family, and then, your career and everything else. And so that is very important. I think it is important to have dialogue, with your spouse or with your, partner. About how not just the kids, but just everything else in general, because a lot of times people may have the misconception that, just because you're a business owner, that doesn't mean life is great. It's really the opposite. Your life is you're pouring in so much day in and day out, and a lot of times you do forget about how are my kids doing. How are they coping? A lot of times we try to incorporate them with a lot of the things that we're doing at the studio, because, for me, I put in a lot of hours and my wife does too. But where is that balance, and it's very interesting that sometimes there isn't a balance, and that's just the reality.
It's not there isn't. It's just no way to balance. You just have to do the best that you can. And some days are going to be good and some days aren't going to be the best. And it's important to, like Barbara said, dialogue, even with your kids. Like I'm constantly talking to my son, who's 12, and even my daughter, she loves it. She comes in, she'll be 6 next month, but she'll, play around, and we talk and about the studio, so she'll help out. But my son, who's older, who needs more time, I think right now, transitioning, being a teenager. So we talk to him constantly. So they need to understand it, and they get it. They get that, this is a challenging phase in our lives right now, and hopefully it'll be temporary, but it's hard work. And we're also teaching him the essence of hard work. And if you want something in the future, if you want to build, we're trying to make it easier for our grandkids. And so they get it. But if you don't dialogue and you don't spend the time at all, that's where you have a real challenge in my eyes.
Yeah, and just to add too, so, our son is, he's in the gifted program. He's a gamer. He told me he created so many things, and sometimes too, he created a YouTube page, and he's like, "Hey, I got this many views," and I'm like, "Okay, great." He's into sports, and he loves basketball. I think he's a better football player than a basketball player, but he's just a kid, and our daughter is, she's a girly girl and, loves to do different things. And she's more of the artistic type. And I think our son BJ is a little bit more of the business. He's kind of like a replica of me a little bit. And so
100%.
Sometimes that scares me a little bit, but at the same time, I'm like, I guess it's gonna be okay.
I know. I already see it with our son. He's only 2.5 years old. This kid is as stubborn and feisty as they come, and I just think, wow, he's like a little mini me. And I know that it's helped me a lot, but God help me as a dad. Because
you see yourself, because you don't realize who you really are until you see your kids.
Oh yeah. And now I'm like, aha, that's what my dad had to deal with. Okay. I get it. So what do you think, because this is something that I think about a lot, which is you guys are, working very hard right now in your business and growing it. But what do you think the impact this will have on your kids, as opposed to if you were just showing up and working a traditional job? And what do you hope for the impact to be?
Yeah, that's something that I think about daily. That's where it really gets real because, first off, as parents, like my wife stated earlier, you're kind of doing this for them. You know how it says, I don't want to get too religious with everybody, but it says that, you want to leave an inheritance for your children's children, and so you work so hard, you're doing this for them, but sometimes you think about while you're doing this for them, are you actually doing this for them? Is the end result that when you arrive or when you feel like you're getting somewhere, but 5 years later, as you're working hard, did you still shape them? Did you still give them all the tools that they need? Are they responsible adults? Do they still learn to be respectful? Did they not do drugs, or are they around good people or good friends, that a lot of times you think about, is God covering them while I'm having some gaps in between, because when you're away, they have a lot of other influencers, at school and just kids around the neighborhood. I mean, I'm kind of thankful that the kids that are in our neighborhoods are very similar to my son, as far as how they are. And they're good kids. And so I think that helps a bit too, because, as parents, there are a lot of things that you don't see, when you're away. And so I don't know what else
Well, I think a lot of that too, you have to literally start from the crib. Like you have to instill these values. You have to kind of, like, my son was never too young. He was one of those where nowadays they're just wise. They're born with their eyes open, holding their neck up. So you really have to start shaping and molding from day one, ground zero. If you wait until they're 4, 5, 6, then that's when you may have problems. If you start teaching them, instilling those values very early, of course, we have a son who, he's a Black male in America, so you have to think about these things. So you have to start very early and make sure that they get it. And I think that's one of the reasons why we waited so long. There's like a 6-year gap between my son and my daughter, because it was kind of like, I need to make sure he gets it. He's not too young to get it. And so I think that if you start early enough as you're building, it may impact them growing. So they will feel like, my parents weren't there, but they'll get it to some degree. So maybe right now he may have issues where he's like, man, I wish I had more time, or whatever the case may be. But when he's 25 or 30, then he'll look back and at least be able to realize, you know what, my parents sacrificed, they were there, they did the best they could, and now you're living a better life. And so everything that we're doing right now is for the future. The future right now, it's not going to get any better. It could, but things may get worse. But at least if we can build some type of inheritance for them, then they'll feel it. It's all a matter of looking back to me. It's as long as you start early enough, the values, everything, they're going to stay there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And that's very profound. I try to, it's funny because, our son, he's 2.5 years old. So he's in that just kind of no to everything. So you'll say something and he just says no, just to say no. And he knows he knows what he's doing. My wife just got a Lincoln Navigator, and we had a funny dialogue because he goes Lincoln Alligator, and I go, no, Caleb, it's a Navigator, and he goes, no, it's an alligator. And so that's just a simple example of him just wanting to debate. So it's like, how do I figure out that balance to be able to penetrate and influence him past his feistiness. But let's talk about the actual decision-making process and what that was like for you guys as you were looking into the franchise. So we talked before, so, I know a little bit about the history of the fact that you guys were like pretty set on this particular franchise and deciding if that was the route for you. One, did you guys look at any other franchise concepts at all as you were going through that decision-making process?
I did not. I mean, of course, you'll get, for whatever reason, whenever you're going through a journey, sometimes other options will try to present itself. But it's kind of like up to you not to lose focus on what you already have in your mind. And so, there are other concepts that came up, like 7-Eleven and, Chick-fil-A but I think those were just like things just to kind of get your mind off of what you're already set out to do. But I didn't really pay too much attention as far as like, they might be doing better, So for me, it was more so, hey, my wife, that's what she thought was best for us. And that's, I'll let her tell her revelation, because a lot of times it is good to listen to your wife, because usually they have the best ideas. And sometimes
happy wife, happy life.
Yeah. So sometimes when you listen, sometimes the outcome may be better, when it comes to, my wife, she's a visionary, she'll get visions, and, 99.9% of the time, she's spot on. I would say 100%, but
I was gonna say 100, but I didn't say that.
So Julie, tell us about that. I mean, what was going on through your mind? You were pretty fired up about this opportunity. Share that with us.
Well, okay. So, like we stated earlier, in 2013, we came here, and I realized how much of a good time he had, that we put together a couples retreat. So we came back a year later, 2014. And then, of course, we're painting in the classroom, and literally I'm painting and I hear a loud voice in my ear just saying, this is what you're going to be doing. And so from that point, when you listen, women, we also have to listen as well. So once you hear it, it's sealed, it's a done deal. So I will not go left or right from what the initial focus is. So once I got that revelation, it was just like, this is it. We're not moving. I don't care if it takes 5 years, 2 years, 7 years, 10 years. When the time is right, it will happen. And so we've been focused, like literally. I know we've looked at other options, but in my mind, I knew, no, this is what we're going to be doing.
Wow, that's powerful. And I know when we spoke, you were more clear about it, which is like God was speaking to me. Like God was speaking to me and saying, this is the route to take. And I think this is a very important point to point out, because no matter what someone's beliefs are, whether it's God, your gut, your instinct, whatever it is that you call it, I think there's many times in our lives where we feel something and we feel strongly, and we ignore our feelings or we listen to those feelings. And sometimes the logical mind can try to talk us out of it. Fear, doubt, uncertainty. And so how how were you able to take that experience that you had and then overcome the self-doubt or the fear or the uncertainty of the reality of the situation?
Well, for me, like, this is not my first, like I said, I'm glad you discussed that people have different beliefs, of course, but for us, we do believe in God. And so this is not my first encounter with him. So from the time I was 18, I've had multiple encounters. So he's always led me. So whatever you hear, whatever that instinct is in your life, it doesn't matter what the world is showing you. It's a matter of what happened yesterday when you followed the instinct. Did you push through it? Did you succeed? Yes. So then I'm not going to fail tomorrow. So every time I've been led to either go left or right, it's been spot on. So if it happened the same at 18, at 28, at 30, and we've always have that positive mindset of this is not going to fail as long as we do what we're supposed to do or we're required to do. And we follow our instincts and we follow our gut and we follow that voice that we hear for us, which is God. And so once he spoke it in our lives, for me, it didn't matter if it was a pandemic, it didn't matter to me that, economy was bad. It didn't matter because I knew that once it's spoken, once we're focused to doing, like we've always, been focused to do anything else in our lives, we've never really failed. We only learn, but we've never really failed. So this was another challenge for us, another phase, another chapter in our book that I knew that we're not going to fail. That's just my mindset. This is it. And we're not going to stop until we get it.
So, Tariq, for me, my mindset is I'm going to win at any cost. So I don't believe in failure. Failure is not an option for me because it's just one of those things that whatever I touch will be successful.
You have to believe in yourself too.
Yeah, and like I say, it goes back to and I really am thankful. I think we're both thankful for our experiences. Because I think it's all about preparation. A lot of times, people, when you put in the work, it's just like Michael Jordan or Kobe. Like they feel like the shot's gonna go in every single time, and so. Like the mindset, is like, we're going to succeed. I mean, it doesn't matter, doesn't matter where. It's just like, you're casting your net and you believe in that you're going to catch as many fish as possible. And so, yeah, just it's just that belief that, hey, we're going to win. We play for keeps too. So,
And not to mention, I've known him since I was 8 years old and he's still around. So,
wow, that's awesome.
This is it.
This is it. This is such a powerful point, and you guys are interview number 1 for this podcast that I'm launching and going to show on YouTube, and I'm excited.
That's a big honor right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited that our conversation has gone to this place because at the end of the day, my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about the tactics and the strategy. And at the end of the day, that's really only 20% of it. Because you could have the tactics and the strategy all day. If you don't execute, if you can't get yourself to overcome the fear, to listen to that voice of God, instinct, gut, whatever it is, then it means nothing. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And I love the mindset that you guys have because it's a similar mindset that I've had. And I've had some incredibly terrifying, scary, challenging times in business, specifically that just through sheer mental will was the only way that I was able to come out successful, even though the journey was one of being battered and bruised. And, when you guys were saying this and talking about your journey, your experience of making the decision, pulling the trigger and saying, we will win. Like I got goosebumps because, I know that you will. And I think sometimes people mistake the journey and the destination. And ultimately, it's not really about how long it takes. And because I've experienced this many times, once you actually get to the destination, you realize you're like, Oh, if I would
So,
have known it
right,
worked out, I would have enjoyed the ride a little bit more. Man.
right, right.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, the journey, like for us, you know, and 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 you're right. For us, it's about being consistent. Finding out, what works. It's trial and error, but making adjustments. You be open to make last minute adjustments. Um, is key. Um, because during the journey, you will find that there are some thick brushes that you may have to either cut through or go around, even though you still know where you're going. But these are some of the things that you may not plan for, and you have to be willing to be able to be just make those changes and to continue moving forward. The thing for us is we're always going to move forward. There's no, might make some lateral moves, but the focus is to move forward. And so, yeah, I mean, it's great, man. I mean, you're right. A lot of times people, you know, think about the universe, or, you gotta know, it's gotta be in here. You gotta have that drive no matter what. It's just like going to the gym. You got to be willing to put that one less extra rep. And I'm just glad that I have a great spotter that won't let the weights drop on my chest. So it's having a great spotter means a lot. You need that trust. You need to know that no matter what, that person is gonna push when they feel like, okay, he may not have it left, and then they'll help you pull it through. And so, yeah, I mean, this is awesome, man. But yeah, you made my day with that. We're your first on this podcast, so.
I'm super excited for this to be the first one. Now, outside of, okay, so you had that spiritual moment saying, like, we know this is the route for us. This is what we need to do. To bring it back to a more tactical or strategic standpoint, okay, great. Now, you feel confident this is the way we're going to go, but there are still very strategic and tactical decisions that need to be made. So can you share with us what were maybe a couple of the really strategic or tactical moves or decisions that you had to make, and that maybe were difficult or challenging or really pivotal? And how can you tell us about those specific experiences and how you were able to figure that out?
Yeah, well, it starts with the process. A lot of times people, think about, okay, I'm going to open up a business. Well, that's great. But then, once you take that action as far as, hey, I'm going to reach out to, corporate to really find out how we can get these things started. And you start looking at the numbers and how much it would cost to actually opening up a brand new location. You got to think about location. You got to think about marketing. You got to think about the setup. Of course, it's a franchise, but not every location look and feel the same way, even though the concept is the same. There's a playbook, but not everything always equates to every location runs the same. A lot of times it's the people that's running it is the difference between success and failure. So for us, it was the process of actually starting it, then realizing, for us, it was one of those things that we were originally planning to start a brand new location. And the costs, that's why I'm thankful that there was a pandemic because we would have, when we were in the process of actually looking for a location outside of this one, was a lot of times strategy is sometimes could be opportunity in disguise without you actually, it's not really your own strategy, like you said. we were actually planning on opening up a whole new location outside of where we are, because the thing with franchises, it's about territory. You can't really like eat into other areas and stuff like that. And when we're in the process of, it was like March of last year, the pandemic was like hit. So it would have been a bad move for us to try to open at that time. And so, so when that happened, all communication stopped between corporate and us, because finding out what happened now is that they were trying to figure out how to fix their own
this pandemic.
Yeah, because it's new for everybody. And so we ended up getting a phone call like 4 or 5 months later, actually 4 months later in July, about, hey, there's this location that, wants to sell. And, thank God, because the previous owner, she was 72 and, wanted to retire as well, and without impacting her retirement. And so you're looking into spending $250,000 to open up a brand new location, to now paying a quarter of that, just to give people some ideas that, you could have the best strategy, but sometimes things just fall into the right. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
So at the time, even we were presented with the offer, of course, now my eyes are like, okay, wait, why are they selling? If it's such a great business, well, I know it's a pandemic. So what are the numbers looking like? So Barbino, of course, looking through the P&Ls. And so we had to make decision as to, okay, do we really want to start our own? Can we take this one over and build it from scratch? And then it comes down to that mentality of, no matter what we do, we're going to win. So you know what, it might be the best decision for us right now to take off, to purchase this location and then make it move. And then maybe in the future, we'll go back to building a location from scratch. So a lot of these decisions to come in, do a reno, figuring out staffing, numbers, how we're going to operate, how much are we going to pay them so that we can survive? Because we were in the red, right, when we took this location. And of course, going back to being consistent, knowing your numbers, know your choices. We're now out of 300 locations. I think we're number, we're 5 now, but I think we went up to 3. The new report hasn't come up yet, but I think we're number 3.
Out of 300 locations?
Out of 300 locations.
No, in the
wow.
nation.
But there's 300 locations in the nation. So yeah, so it comes down to being very consistent, making those choices and what's going to work for you. And there were some tough choices, like Barbino had to make a lot of cuts that for me, it's like, oh my gosh, could we make that with, with the employees? I'm playing not necessarily devil's advocate, but I've worked as contractors before. So it was a lot of challenges, trusting your gut, trusting your partner, knowing that decisions that you're going to make are going to be the right one, and just go with it.
Wow, that's epic. Wow, congratulations. That is so huge. I mean, yeah, because usually and for the people listening out there, when you buy a resale franchise, a lot of the time, some of the better resale opportunities, they just get scooped up by existing franchisees that are in the market locally. And then obviously during the pandemic, there was, granted, probably, it's going to be a turnaround opportunity, right? Which is, kind of what you guys bought it at. So to go from that to being up to number 5, number 3 in the country is absolutely amazing. And it's not like you guys like dipped your toes in the water. You guys are both full time in the business. So you've been going hard, like you put an effort, like this was not an accident that you were able to make this turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of hit a little bit of that. Yeah. So a lot of, like you said, actually an existing owner around this area, actually he was presented with the opportunity of actually acquiring this before we even knew about it. So, and he ended up turning it down, and he already owns like 5 locations already, but he ended up turning it down. Like I said, the hindsight, he probably like, whoa, man, I messed that one up. But
Well, but I'm a believer that a lot of the times it's you, right? It's the individual owner, because it just shows. I mean, there are locations that can be struggling and not be as successful as they can. All of a sudden, you have a different owner come in, a different mindset that says we win no matter what. So you always figure out the strategy, right? When you have that mindset, you figure out the strategy. If you start with strategy and you don't have the mindset, well, then you'll give up when it doesn't work. So I don't know that anyone would have been able to turn this around.
Thank you. I'll take that. Actually, you're spot on that one.
I mean, I've seen it, so it's just the reality of of the situation. But all right, so let's talk about where you guys go from here. I know you're hustling day in, day out, really working hard in the business, and now I would imagine, given our initial conversation and just kind of getting to know you guys, that you're starting to think, okay, well, how do we scale? How do we go from working so much in the business to working more on the business and really, scaling this thing? So tell us about kind of what your thoughts are on that, and what your strategy is moving forward.
Yeah, so right now since we're at a very good place, and so like you said about the mindset part, like for me, it's like, okay, our plan is on expanding. I think our vision is, next 5 years is to own about 5 of these locations. And so, and right now we're looking, we're always looking. And so right now we have a great team. It's all about now empowering, training, pretty much downloading your DNA into those that are representing the brand or within our studio. A lot of times, yes, as far as one thing I'm learning about artists is that you still want them to be themselves, but as far as how we do things, they kind of have to do the back end stuff the same way that we would do it, so that it doesn't lose, because you need to be able to measure that. And so when people are doing things their own way, that process is hard to really say you did it efficiently, and so.
And I think for us right now, because we've been so successful, I think right now the real struggle is trusting the right person that's going to be able to take this baton and run it if we're not there. And so for us now, I think for a lot of business owners, I think, we've been so in for this year. Okay, can we really, how do we scale back a little bit? We know the process, the strategy, we need to bring somebody in and train them. And then now it's a matter of trusting that they will be able to, do the same task the way that you would, implement them. So that's where we are right now. We are planning to train maybe one person to take over so that we can branch out and focus on, operating other locations, going international. So we have a couple of plans right now.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm sure you guys will win in those expansion plans as well. Now, if you got the chance to kind of hit the rewind button, is there anything that you would have done differently in the process? And if so, what would that have been?
I would say personally, I would say maybe start sooner.
Wow.
Yeah, because it just, so to me, the way I look at a business, a lot of people, if a business is a person to me. It's its own person that you always, as a representative of that person, you always try to do the best thing for it. I think for us back then, in my mindset, was like, it's like having a baby. It's never the right time. You could plan for a baby, but it's still never the right time. It just, say, hey, babe, you know, you ready? Now we're older. We're like, I don't think so. But, you know, looking back, knowing everything, even though we were not, even I think we were still at a better place when we started. I think the timing was great, regardless of what was going on. But knowing what I know now, you know, like you said, with the struggle and the mindset, no matter what the obstacle would have been, I think we would have overcame it even sooner. I think a lot of times we may over prepare ourselves and overthink like you're not ready. But if it was already in you, I think time would have forced it out of you sooner if you just make that jump.
Yeah. What about you, Julie?
You know, I'm probably right where Barbino's at as well. I think that we could have maybe started sooner, but maybe this was just the right time for us, you know, looking back. But I don't think there's anything necessarily different that I would do. The only thing different I would have done, which has nothing to do with the business, I probably would have had my 2 kids 5 years sooner so that we can fully start this business sooner. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have been worried about, oh my gosh, they're young, they need more time and et cetera. But yeah, start as soon as you can. Don't put it off. Just find the right people, if you have them, that can support you. The ones that are being negative, get rid of them. And just focus, have a plan, and stick with that plan. Write it down. Look at it every day until it's accomplished.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I mean, both of those nuggets of wisdom are so incredibly powerful. The timing's never right. The timing will never feel right. The reality is entrepreneurship is hard. Owning a business is hard. It's kind of like I'm training for another Spartan race. That's why that medal back there, I did a 6-mile one earlier this year, and I'm training for another one. And you guys are here in Orlando. How hot is it today? It's already hot. Like hot, right?
Yeah.
It's hot.
90 degrees.
It's hot, and humid hot.
And humid hot. So I went for a 3-mile and change run this morning, and it was already very, very hot at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:45-ish. And, you know, it was like I find that when it comes to the run, when I have to run and I don't have to run a long distance, oh man, my mind figures out ways to procrastinate and delay. And all of a sudden I got to walk the dogs and I got to use the bathroom and this and this and this to avoid the inevitable, which is it's going to suck during the process. But after I finished the run, I felt amazing. And I think entrepreneurship is the same way. You guys talked about it has not been glamorous. It has been hard. It has been challenging. But right now, you guys are number 5, number 3 in the country, and you're just getting started.
Yeah. I still, people ask me, what's the secret? You know, I tell them it's my wife. So
good answer.
And but like you said, you know, it's less than a year, and I still feel like we're scratching the surface. You know, a lot of people outside looking in and say, "Hey, you guys made it. You guys are killing it." And to me, it still feels like yesterday. So like that, I'm always looking at for the next. You know, like how can we keep strong, like getting better? You know, my wife would tell you that, you know, my mindset is like I'm never satisfied. You know, it's just I'm always thinking about the next. I'm thinking about how can we be better, even though someone will come in and say, hey man, this studio is phenomenal. Like everything's in the right order. It's clean. I gotta thank my wife too, because she's a nurse and, you know, she has that you know, everything gotta be sanitized and everything gotta look a certain way. And so, but for us, we still have a hunger, we still have a drive, we still remember the struggle, you know, those first 4 or 5 months of 20 hours, you know, sleeping at the studio, not going to sleep. Basically, we're working 24/7, you know, putting everything in place, getting as much information as possible. Because that's the thing, like you said, success is not easy. It looks easy outside looking in. People will look at us and say, wow, I don't know, they look great. I know my wife looks great. I don't know about me, but we don't look like hard work, but they don't understand, like, it takes hard work. There's no shortcuts.
Yeah, and you're right. And I will add that no shortcuts has to start even before the business. So you got to have that mindset of, our pastor always says, you got to learn to be number one in the number two position. And once you learn to take away all those shortcuts and just do it right, the best you can every time, and whatever it is that you're doing, entrepreneurship, you should be able to get in and master and focus and do what you need to do. If you did shortcuts your entire life and you think you're going to do shortcuts once you have a business, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. Wow. Such a great point. Totally agree. There are no shortcuts. There's no figuring out a way around it. You have to go through it. There's the obstacle is the way. I think that was a book. I forget who wrote that book, but I think there's a book called The Obstacle is a Way. And with that, Burbino and Julie, thank you so much for this interview. I know we initially planned to do it in person, and at some point we will have another conversation in person. But wow, this was absolutely epic, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to talk to me and share your journey and experience with everyone.
Tariq, we thank you for having us. It was an honor for us to be on the show, and being first ones, that's even better. So it's a blessing for us. We thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And it's a blessing. And I know that everything you do will be super successful. And we're just hoping, like you said, that we were able to help those that are also listening as well. So we're hoping to be a blessing to those that's hearing this.
Yeah, you definitely are. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.